Hey guys, welcome to Nate and Greg's World. We're here today with Dave Rogers. He is an author, coach, and I'm going to try to say this right, investorpreneur. Kind of like an entrepreneur.
That That's right.
Perfect. Wow, I said
You did it perfect.
First shot out of the gate.
Yes.
But what we're going to be talking about today is PTSD in the corporate world. We're going to be talking about a lot of other things, but there's the big component of Dave's new book there that has to do with PTSD in the corporate world, and so we're going to have a good look at that. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button there down below. Hit that bell icon to make sure you stay notified of when it is that we're coming out with new stuff, and don't forget to follow us on our other platforms. And as per normal, with these long-form podcasts, you'll also find them, our audio version, on Spotify, Google Play, and Apple Podcast. I nailed it.
You got it all.
Fuck, fantastic.
Wow.
All right.
It'll be a good day.
Yes. So, Dave, nice to have you here. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming out.
Fantastic drive here.
Yeah.
Really loved it.
Easy.
Yeah, fantastic. The weather was fantastic today, and smooth and simple. One of my favorite phrases.
This has been a weird winter, eh?
Absolutely.
Like so warm, hardly any snow. I love it.
And today was just an incredible day. It's
yeah.
going to just be that one of those days of journeying and moving to and fro.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. All our people out in Newfoundland are cursing us right now.
Yeah, go on.
They're buried under 70 feet of snow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's absolutely horrible. But yeah, Dave, we met you down, okay, we went to two places that day. They both started with a B, and I'm trying to remember which one was which.
Brampton.
Brampton.
We met him in Brampton.
Yes.
Yes.
And, sorry, what was this event that we were at again?
Actually, it was held and hosted by our venue sponsor, Empower for Excellence, which is a co-working space in Brampton. Right. And it was the Brampton startup community that runs regular skills development workshops.
Right.
And so we're looking at equipping entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, with the skills required to be a good, successful entrepreneur. And one of the things that we really noticed last year is the technology side is a big challenge. Yeah. So whether it's podcasting, whether it's videoing, whether it's Instagram. And so we're bringing in special guest speakers who could run and facilitate a mini workshop, mastermind, or focus group.
Right on.
And so you guys fantastically came from all the way from St. Thomas. And you saw, like, we had a nice intimate group. I think there was 8 or 9 of us, people with great experience and people who are looking to improve their skill set. So that's what we've been attracting. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it was a good time when we met a lot of good people. Like, it was great.
Yeah.
I think that's what happens when you have like a mastermind setup where you have sort of between 6 and 12 people. You go deep. You're not sort of running around giving your business card to everyone. You're actually asking questions, you're connecting, and that's the type of environment that I'd love to be part of and to be able to share.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, other than yourself, there was Savvy, there's Bruce, there's Deborah. We've met all of them. We've been in constant contact with them since. We've actually had Savvy on the show.
That's right.
We did a podcast with Bruce as well. And, he's hanging out there down in Barbados.
Yes.
That'd be really nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully when he comes back, we're looking at it for like near the end of February. He's going to actually come on ours and we'll talk there. But yeah, it was fantastic. We learned a lot, a lot of that social networking there, which was fantastic. It really helped us out. And a couple of them there were like, oh, okay, listen, you guys are dumb. This is what you need to be doing. Oh, fuck, all right. Well, this is why we're not getting anywhere. Perfect, thanks. So, but yeah, it was great. I had a great time, and I know we were on our way back from there, and we're just sitting there going, okay, we need to work on this. We need to work on this. Well, we need to get in contact with this person. So it was a great little thing, and, can't wait to see if, something like this happens again. We'll go from there.
Yeah, and with you, like... So we talked about having you on the podcast. You have a very kind of in-depth story, background leading up until the point right now. We struggled with what the fuck we were going to talk about with you because you have done and been and seen and experienced so many different things.
Yeah.
Being an author, being a investorpreneur.
I'll say you got it.
So for everybody out there, just because me and Greg knew right away what that meant.
Yeah.
But that's basically somebody who invests in entrepreneurs. So I'm assuming that's through your time, through your investments, everything. Like you kind of help with the whole everything, right? That has to do with that.
It starts from investing in companies, so it could be publicly listed companies. And I've been doing that since I was 14 years old.
Right.
It's over 40 years of investing.
Yep.
And
We might need to get him to show us how to do that.
and which is really
I've
great.
invested in the Circle K with like my Snickers bar.
Yeah. That's right.
But it's been great because I've actually designed it so you can teach children, teenagers, to invest in stocks that they're interested in.
Well, and so important.
So instead of just buying products, actually, if you love Nike's shoes, why not buy one share?
Right.
Or if you love Disney, why not own some shares? So it teaches kids and big kids, 50, 60, 70-year-old people too,
Yeah.
to have a portfolio of holdings that they can actually be an owner of. So it shifts the mindset when you're a stakeholder in the companies that you love. Like,
For sure.
And also you're tapping into the information that these companies are giving to their stakeholders.
That's a scam, eh? If your son like it bought into Nike,
Yeah.
and was like, Mom, Dad, don't you want to support me? buy me a new pair of Nikes.
Yeah.
You're supporting my future.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about it is that when my kid was 10 years old, that's when I started introducing the idea to him.
Yeah.
And then we started picking stocks for him. So he bought Apple when it was like $45. He bought, like, then he got interested in even picking companies that he wanted products from.
Yeah.
So, like, just him going shopping or noticing in newspapers, oh, he really likes this SodaStream, for instance. Remember SodaStream?
Yeah.
So he said, I want one of those. And I go, well, is there a company behind it? And then we did some research. And then we went to a place in Singapore called Takashimaya, and we tried the product. And then we bought the product, but we also bought the stock. The stock went up. We sold a little bit of stock. He got his product for free.
Nice.
My friend just bought a Tesla. We talked about this 3 months ago. I said, you're spending $70,000 on the Tesla. Why not put $3,500 or $5,000 into the shares?
Yeah.
He wish he would have.
Yeah, because it
Because
just skyrocketed.
it would have paid for his Tesla by doing that one little investment.
Yeah, because Tesla has skyrocketed over the last month.
Correct.
Like
Yeah.
it went up like what? Like
It went from about 140, I believe, to about 550. So
Yeah, like it was
it's
crazy.
like tripled. So this is about financial awareness, which is,
Yeah.
again, one of my passions is to teach financial awareness. So I do it as an investorpreneur. I invest in stocks, but I also invest in people.
Right.
So I invest in businesses, and I've been doing that for, again, pretty much since 2000 is when I really started in Asia, investing in different businesses. And I must admit, most of them have not succeeded or have even survived the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yet by me investing time, money, energy, I actually developed my own skill sets in working with people.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's going to be the people you're able to work with.
right.
Right.
Can you be resourceful? This idea
Yeah.
of this podcast, for it to go 10 times bigger, 100 times bigger, you could think it might be the money or the cameras. No, it's going to be the people you
Yeah.
are able to attract.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's one of
Yeah.
the things that we do with our community build is let's work with people that are fun. Let's work with people that,
Yeah.
that want to learn, want to contribute, want to make a difference. And that's the part of my slant on investorpreneurship.
Right.
Which is awesome because it's true. Like, everybody's looking for that piece of life that's fun to get up to in the morning, and not many people have it.
No.
So, if you're smart enough and you figure it out, good on you.
Yeah.
If you're playful enough, like that's the funny thing is that many of the things that you do in your 20s isn't necessarily what you're going to be doing in your 40s or what you're going to be doing in your 60s. However, one day you wake up and you're 50 years old and you look back and you're lost.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that we're noticing in men's health is that many men right now in their 50s are committing suicide because they're not willing to change and let go of
No.
being that successful football player when they're 18 years old.
Yeah.
And they've been living
Yeah.
that dream.
Still telling the same story about that magical touchdown back in, yeah.
And so when that ball drops and they're 54 and they're on a bridge, they decide to jump off.
Well, then
Yeah.
it's interesting because I see that on both sides, right? Like you see the person living that story, the positive story, and they ride it as long as they can into their 50s. And then on the other side of that, you got the people that have something horrible happen to them when they're young, and they're still blaming their life on that particular incident 50 years later.
Correct.
Well, I'm like this, or I've ended like this because this happened to me when I was young,
Yes.
right? So it works both ways.
And so there's
Yeah.
a word that, again, so many people are look at retirement. I'll do that. I'll go start charity or I'll start contributing when I retire. My invitation to people is to let's start rewiring today.
Yeah.
Like we rewire the way that we speak. We rewire what we think we can do. We're talking a little bit about yoga.
Yes.
Again, most people, like a year and a half ago, my philosophy was I was as flexible as a pencil. Not very flexible.
That sounds about like
Exactly,
me.
but that's
Yeah.
most men, especially any guys who played sports, is that when we don't stretch, when we don't allow our bodies to move, we become pretty inflexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But our minds become inflexible.
Yeah.
Now, if you decide to bring flexibility into your life, you start by bending over, and then the next day you might bend over just a little bit further and a
Yeah.
little bit further because that whole lifestyle of being healthy and flexible and vibrant, that's what I'm inviting people to do in rewiring.
Yeah.
And so it's so much about men's health is about rewirement, letting go of what no longer serves us where we are today.
Well, and the other fight on that is that not only, with men with that, but in our world today, everybody, if they don't get immediate results, they don't want to do it.
Yes.
If it's work, no, I don't have fucking time for that, right? Like you talk about bend over, stretch this far today, but tomorrow you might make it an inch further, and the next day another inch. Well, that's, in my calculation, 7 years before I touch the ground.
Right.
I don't have fucking 7 years to do this, right? So they just give up.
Right.
As opposed to, yeah, but you know what, then in 7 years, how much further ahead am I going to be?
Right.
Like now I'm going to be happy. Now I'm going to have what I want, as opposed to thinking of now.
Well, I guess what happens is that most people, when they think of right now, are they happy? Well, actually, they're not. Like that's the truth of the matter is most people aren't very happy. So being a student of happiness would be one new strategy.
Yeah. Well,
I love the idea. All of us love to learn, and I think that's
Yeah.
the key. Is in having a better life is that we have to let go of what no longer serves us,
Right.
well,
inch by inch.
and that was the big thing right there, loving what you do and stuff like this. And that was one of the bigger reasons why we actually started this, because he's like, I am so sick of going to work. I'm so sick of doing what I'm doing. And we need to work on doing this podcast, and like, that's been like our driving force. We're sick of work. We want to do this. Little did we know that this is a ton of fucking work to do. But I was going to
Hopefully
say,
my boss doesn't watch this podcast. I love my job.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
I love going every day.
yeah. But at the same time, like I was actually fortunate enough to be in a position where I could leave my job at the time. I've had a different avenue to take, so that I'm not out in a cardboard box somewhere. But I know that there was a lot of people at the place that I worked at that if they could, they would have left in a heartbeat. But the problem is they really felt like they were stuck, and we are loving what we're doing now, doing this podcast, being able to talk, and it's fantastic. And then also going back to the, stretching for, that 1 inch and then the next day another inch and stuff like this. I will fully admit I am the most guilty motherfucker when it comes to, this is taking a lot. Forget it.
Well, I guess
especially when it comes to working out, obviously.
Well, let me share a little strategy there, because I do work with people who, when they think of their job, they first say they hate it. My first invitation is, let's find areas that you like about it.
Yeah.
And let's infuse even more things that you like about it. See, what's great about my journey for the last 3 months even is that I chose to take a job for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah.
So I've actually been working for the first time in 20 years in a job.
Wow.
And so I had to find ways to infuse wellness into it.
Yeah.
So that's what I was sharing. What I've been doing, I've been walking 20 to 25,000 to 30,000 steps a night.
That's about 30,000 steps more than me.
Yeah,
Just saying.
Yeah, but again, I could have decided to hate that,
Yeah.
or I actually said I'm being paid to work out.
Yeah. Well, that works.
So the psychology of the way that we look at our job, like I remember having some jobs that I liked maybe 80% of it, and I hated 20%. Can I find the way to make that 20% having some learning, having some personal development? In people communication skills, we all have to improve our people's skills. Like Warren Buffett says, the number one skill that he's encouraging teenagers and early 20-year-olds to do is their public presentation skills.
Right.
Yes.
People are dying to communicate right now. We're talking about the iPhone and the iPad. Has it been good for communication? Many ways, no, because people are losing the art of conversation.
Yeah.
And people are yearning to be heard.
Yes.
And so you pulled the card today about listening. You are a great listener because you're interested in the people.
Yeah.
And so this idea of infusing liking your job or liking things about your job or finding a way that you persuade yourself to see it as an investment in whatever else you want to do.
I think, and the problem becomes that 20% becomes 90%. That's all you focus on, right? Like I see the people in their cars every morning when I'm driving to work.
Yes.
And it is the most depressed look in every vehicle that I pass. Everybody's half asleep. They're like, oh, fuck. It's unreal. And they look like zombies. It's like a city of fucking zombies driving cars.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. They're all annoyed. They're all pissed off. And it's like they're going to jail for the next 8 hours. Like I'm checking in at the jail. I'm doing my time. And then I'm going home.
I guess when I drive, I tend to look for that one person who's like sitting in a car and they're screaming because they're singing and they think they're the next rock star. And I find the humor because I often will find that person somewhere because it is so in a sea of sameness. This person actually has the vitality, the energy, because that's what they're choosing to do. And I think that's my invitation to some people is that find some areas where energy and vitality can be part of your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether it's, again, simple things that can infuse that life force into your life. And it can be as simple as a closed eye meditation for 1 minute. It could be a prayer. It could be walking. It could actually, I started this by doing a 100 squat challenge. I invited people to do 100 squats in a day. It doesn't mean 100 squats at once. It could be 5 reps of 20 squats.
Right.
Yeah.
And by offering this team of people that I was working with in Malaysia, and it was incredible. They would start getting excited. It was in a WhatsApp group. And some people who had never exercised for decades started doing these squats.
Right.
And then they would video their squats. Or they'd tell, I've changed what I'm eating. Oh, I've decided to go to the gym. And the results in 3 months from this 100 squat challenge was revolutionary.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Just by starting. And some people couldn't do squats, so they would do abbreviated type of squats, and they would just move their body a little bit. That's one of the things that, if you want to get well, I think the movement is such a key component.
Oh, for sure. The physicality, right? I mean, I do that with so many clients that are in depression or, they feel like they're in ruts in life. And I'm like, what are you doing? And, they're all sitting on the couch watching TV at night. And they don't even notice. Like, I'm like, how much, they think they're watching, half an hour before I go to bed, I put on the TV. And then when we get to the truth, it's like 3 fucking hours. Like, they blow their whole night.
I'm sorry,
and I'm like,
is there a problem with that? just wondering.
Not for you.
Netflix and chill is my thing. Like that every night.
And what I encourage, though, is that there's these little postures you can do in yoga, right? That you can actually be watching TV and doing some of these postures, which, again, can it be fun? Is that idea is that if you move your body a little bit while watching TV, like you can do leg raises, you can do a little bit of just moving.
How do you play on your phone, watch Netflix, and do this show at the same time?
The funny thing is, in an hour, if you do 3 minutes, it's more than you did the day before. And I think that's what it's chunking it down to. Little bite sizes. That's not just bite sizes of snack food. It's actually bite sizes of vitality or energy or of wellness.
Well, and that goes with, I talk to my clients, that are, they feel like they don't have time. They feel like, that's too much. I would love to start this business, or I'd love to start doing this, but I have kids, I have this, I have that, I have
you know
that
what
job.
that is? That is BS.
Well, it is BS. And what I tell them is I say, listen, it's BS, but it's also because, again, they're going with this. If it doesn't change by tomorrow, it's not worth doing.
By the way, what is BS?
Oh, that's straight bullshit.
In my world, it's belief system.
Right.
It's belief system.
That's interesting.
Because their belief system, because that really is, they don't have time. Well, you know a guy called Richard Branson?
Yeah,
he has 250 businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How come he has enough time?
Well, because he's paying
I just like
people
to
to
shine
run
his
them.
shoes.
Correct. He's very good at delegating.
Yeah.
See, one of the luxuries we have here in Canada, if you want to start a business or you want to be involved, you can learn to delegate. See, if delegation becomes the one thing that you choose to get better at in the next 90 days, you're going to be a better entrepreneur.
Oh, for sure.
So delegation, see, most people will never be an entrepreneur. They'll actually stay a solopreneur. And a solopreneur in Canada right now really has 3 jobs, earning less than minimum wage.
Yeah.
That's what a solopreneur has.
Yeah.
Because you have to bust it to pay everybody, pay the rent, pay their staff. And there's going to often be nothing left for you.
Yeah.
And so this idea of learning to delegate, like if you have a full-time job, start figuring out ways to delegate. Use some of the online services. Use a Fiverr. Or use the different ways that the students can be your interns. You can do co-op. You can actually invite a lot more resources. One of my favorite words is resourcefulness.
Yeah.
Is that what are the ways that we can be more resourceful? What a great question.
Yeah.
You start tapping into the possibilities of our mind. Start programming our reticular activating system on what we do focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are ways that you can actually make small incremental changes. In Japanese, it's called kaizen, constant and never-ending improvement. You start that way, and that's part of the challenge for people who want everything yesterday, and they're not willing to start today.
Yeah.
Well, and they don't see the reality of then I explain to them, listen, if you have an hour a day, that's 365 hours a year that you've just worked towards something you want to do. Everybody's got an hour a day. right?
That's what comes down to BS, right?
BS.
It's the BS they tell themselves.
Yeah.
And see, an hour for me right now is a really tricky one because I almost want people that stay like my 100 squat challenge. It really will take you about 3 minutes.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to get 1 minute. I'm trying to get 2 sit-ups. I'm trying to get 1 push-up. Because that's where we need to get to a point where they actually start to feel empowered as opposed to overburdened.
But it's amazing though, because a lot of the majority of people, you'll say, I just need 3 minutes. They're like, oh, 3 minutes?
Exactly.
Do squats? I don't know. yeah, like, I don't know.
I use that time to go to
don't
the
know if
fridge
I-
and get something.
Yeah. I don't know. 3 minutes.
Squat in front of the fridge.
What 1
Or you,
minute to
or
walk
you literally
over?
get you literally get your joke. The person that says, "Yeah, but how am I supposed to scroll through social media, watch
Yeah,
TV,
yes,
yeah.
do all this
Yes,
stuff?" Well, you're
yeah.
not. You
No.
fucking lazy fuck. Start doing something. Right?
Yes,
Like,
I know.
Well, this is what's really cool about the roles that we have right now is we actually have an opportunity to, again, I think we talked about asking questions, right?
Yes.
So when will people make changes is when we, if we're working with them, is to create a perceived future that is compelling to change. Alternatively, we create so much pain, perceived pain, if they keep doing what they're doing right now, what's their life going to be like in 5 years?
Yeah.
They'll probably be in a grave.
Yeah.
Now, if we can get them to attach to those emotions, that's when people will make some changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's questioning them to get the triggers in them that will get those changes. And that's what, again, when I'm working with entrepreneurs, we've got to rewire them because an entrepreneur who's got no staff has got to be a totally different person who's got 10 staff.
Right.
And again, they got to be totally different again when they got 100 staff.
Yeah.
And so the entrepreneur journey is it's a great metaphor for do you live a life of transformation? Are you willing to embrace change? Because guess what? You've got to change. Like so many people say, oh, if I raised $100,000, my business will. No, guess what? Then you're going to have responsibility to shareholders. Oh, if I got a $10 million business, guess what? If you got a $100 million business, so you've got to continue to be that evolving.
Absolutely.
Leader.
Yeah, and you have to be like easy to transfer and make changes and listen to ideas. And again, that becomes difficult too, because now you got some guy that built $100 million business, and they got somebody who's working for them saying, you should really do it this way. And they're like, listen, son, I had my first million when you were still sucking on your mom's tit. Okay, like you're telling me what to do, and they don't want to bring that in, that new style, that new way of doing stuff, right?
Well, that's what's cool about asking questions as opposed to when I have to give advice or I have to give counsel to people. I find stepping back and asking the question is much more effective than telling people what to do. We rarely can get results, especially if we're getting that friction against their belief structure or what they know. Again, there's a beautiful quote from Lao Tzu from China. It's to know and not to do is not yet to know. And so when you meet people...
Wait. Say that again?
Yes.
Yeah.
To know,
Real slow. Dumb white guys here.
to know and not to do is not yet to know.
To know
Oh,
and
that
not
makes-
to do. Yeah, okay, got
So
it.
you meet people and they cross their arms and say, oh, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. Oh, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Are you doing any of it?
Well, no, then you don't
Then you
fucking
don't.
know.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful little quote it's one of my favorite quotes. And it's just something that when I catch myself, even my little voice saying, oh, I know that.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Are you doing it? It's sort of like
Yeah.
some of the strategies we're talking in social media. You read it in a book and we know what we're supposed to do, and then we notice we're not getting the results. Well, guess
Yeah.
what? We're probably not doing it like we think we know.
Yeah,
And so-
exactly.
And what happens is often what we need to do is the exact opposite of what we think we needed to do.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool about life, is that your winning strategies, again, when you're 40 are almost the opposite of what they used to be when you're 20.
Yeah.
And this continual evolution, it just is a great mind mess up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look how much the world has changed since we were 20. I mean, the stuff that we could have been successful doing back then, you wouldn't have a chance now. So,
No.
of course, we've all had to, change. And to keep up with that change, holy shit.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked the other day about the fact, kids come out almost with tablets in their hands.
Yeah, exactly.
And ready to go. Like, I mean, we get our kids to fix our technical problems at home,
Yes.
right? Or on the computer.
Like, I remember having to fix the clock on the VCR for my parents, and now I'm going to my kids going, okay, what's going on my computer here? And they're like, listen, you have to do this, and they start spitting out all this mumbo-jumbo crap. I'm like, I don't care, just fucking fix it.
Yeah.
They go and they fix it, thanks. They go away, now I can go back to playing solitaire or whatever I'm doing.
That's right. Back to it.
What's cool about one of the types of businesses that I love to share? It's called transgenerational business.
Yeah.
So it's like if you got your podcast going on right now, having a teenager as your intern and having perhaps even a 70-year-old as part of your team could be really magical, because the 70-year-old might be able to open up the doorways to the Rotary or to the province, or whereas the 17-year-old could be doing technology and they're getting their 50 hours of volunteerism, and it's like, isn't that cool? Like a transgenerational business. I think the movie The Intern was probably the first time we got to see that. Yet that I'm excited about. I think I'm encouraging people to get more involved that way, because hanging out with young ones can be so much fun too. They do see the world from a different perspective, and both you guys really like to shift perspectives. Yet it really is eye-opening. So
for sure. No, for sure. We want to get some students
actually
to do some stuff.
We put out some feelers out to the local college there and said, look, like this is what we're looking to do. We want some people, some marketing people, some people with social media experience, broadcasting and stuff like that. Come help us out. Give it, practice what you're learning in school, and that'll give us a hand. And then, yes, I know we're small right now, but just think, once we suddenly get up to X number of subscribers on YouTube or followers on this platform here, you can be like, look, I brought these guys from here to here. That's a pretty damn good thing for your resume.
Correct.
So just again, if you're looking for an internship, we are more than happy to take you. We are busy old white men that just ain't got the time for this shit. Yeah. So come help us out.
That's right. But you keep referring to Asia.
Yes.
Because you spent many years in Asia.
Yes.
1 or 2 months, maybe, something like that, wasn't it?
I went there originally for 3 months.
Yeah.
And stayed 33 years.
That's pretty close.
Yeah, it was close.
So
Did you weren't able to find the airport?
Exactly. I had a dream actually when I was in my 20s. I wanted to be rich. And
I've had that dream too.
Yeah. And at the time, Japan was an economic superpower.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when Japan's basically their biggest banks, the biggest insurance companies, the biggest manufacturers, the Kanban system of development. So they were just eating everyone's lunch.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to go there and wanted to make money.
Yeah.
And so I got the opportunity to get a scholarship after 4 times of being rejected.
Yeah.
And so I got a little scholarship to go over there and fell in love with it. Yet I must admit, the first 3 days I was bawling my eyes out as I was lonely, as I missed my family. As the first time I went and lived abroad.
How old were you at that time?
I was 21.
21,
right.
So young. Yeah.
And I went and did the scholarship and ended up really enjoying it. Made some fantastic friends, still friends today, and came back to Canada, finished up at McMaster International MBA.
Yep.
And I got a job, super lucky to get a job at the Royal Bank of Canada. Mm-hmm. And I had in my mind that I got to get back to Japan, and if they don't send me back within a year, I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
I went to HR and said, I want to go to Japan. They say, well, we don't send people over until about 7 or 8 years into your career. And I said, too long. Yeah. And I then went to Japan at that Christmas and met the gentleman, the vice president, the country manager, and made him a proposal to bring me over, because at that time, Japan was doing so well, Canada wasn't doing so well, and they had 7 people in all of Canada who spoke Japanese. And so I said, why don't we start an international internship program, and I'll go be your intern. Now, what was the thing that would have stopped it was to send an expat from Canada. It used to cost the bank about $450,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I basically said, I don't need the $10,000 a month apartment. I don't need the twice a year homestay. I'll go as an intern. Give me a little stipend, and I'll come and be your guinea pig. Well, he got a promotion from starting this program. I got to go to the bank as an 18-month intern and ended up being 6.5 years.
Wow.
And that internship program continued to grow. In fact, the number 6 person that was part of the internship program that I started is the chairman of the bank now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, shit, there you go.
So again,
so I imagine going in and asking for a loan is pretty easy now.
Actually, no, you laugh about that. I came back after 33 years of being a bank, actually having a fairly decent portfolio with the bank. Yeah. Because I had no credit with the bank for 33 years, they wouldn't even give me a credit card unless it was secured. And that was hilarious. But again, coming back after being away for so long has been incredibly, it could have been traumatic, except I made it humorous.
Yeah.
I laughed so much of the idiosyncrasies of having to deal with the government, of having to
Yeah.
reconnect to the country, how much it's changed. And it's
Yeah.
been a hilarious experience for the last year.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I imagine there's been massive changes you've noticed, like being away for 33 years and then coming back.
Incredible. Yeah, it's so after Japan, then I got transferred to Hong Kong, and then I worked in Hong Kong. And the great time, it was a handover when Hong Kong went back to China. And so at that time, though, I became a bond trader, and that was extremely stressful. But fortunately, my years in Japan taught me a lot about stress.
Right.
And that was because I almost killed myself when I was in Japan.
Yeah.
So it was the highest highs of my life and the lowest lows of my life.
What was the work culture like there? Like when you worked, I hear different things. I hear that they're very laxed. I've heard that they work like 72 hours a day, 750 hours a week. Like they live at their jobs. Like I've heard so many different.
There's a term called karoshi. Karoshi is death by overwork.
Right.
Okay.
Very common.
Really?
Yes.
So like, what are the hours?
I used to work at 7 a.m. to about 7 p.m. That's my as one of the managers there. My staff though would have an extra 2, 3, 4 hour commute per day.
Whoa.
And so they would be in at 8 and they would leave at 8. So they basically had a 7 or basically left the house at 6 a.m. and got home at midnight. Very common. Leave the house at 6 a.m., get home at midnight.
That's crazy.
The whole living
and then,
to work.
and then the commute, because you're talking an hour and a half commute standing in a train face to face with people. It is oh man, the effort. I actually had a chat with my boss at the time because coming aboard as the young person in the office, I wanted the social class or the social community in our office to be quite vibrant. And so we actually started a tennis club and we went bowling. We did all these things. And he asked me one day, as we sat at the Tokyo Correspondence Club, having a couple of martinis that he was famous for having.
Yeah.
And he just said, Dave, why do you care about doing all this? I go, John, these people, their life is this business, this company.
Yeah.
And they're working 14, 16 hours a day. We got to have some fun here. We got to have, and so we really created a community, an environment at the workplace that it really was a wonderful place. And I was really thrilled that we were able to do that with people. And so I had my 5 years of working full time, and actually was asked to downsize the company too. And so we went from over 100 people down to like 40 people.
Wow.
And so I had that opportunity as a sort of 26-year-old to have that duty. And that was, again, a wonderful opportunity. Yet it definitely stretched my levels of compassion, my levels of fear. And so, yet the idea of working hard, so they work long hours. They don't necessarily work hard.
Right.
They tend to monitor the amount of work they do because if they know they're going to be there, and then they have this other philosophy is that if the boss doesn't go home, they don't go home.
Right.
Oh, really?
Okay, so there's these little nuances that used to be very prevalent when I was there. Again, that's been over 20 years, so I do believe it's changed. Yet the long hours is probably still pretty prevalent.
Well, yeah, and that's what I hear. I mean, we watched, I don't know if you've seen the documentary on Netflix about, it's called American Factory.
Yes.
Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen the whole movie, but...
Yeah, you should watch that. So that's about a Chinese billionaire that opens up a factory in the U.S., in Michigan, I believe.
Right.
And the idea is that he's going to get the economy boosted there, and like Michigan's going to help this billionaire start up a business and get things going here in North America. So at the beginning, it's all very friendly, and the two cultures are getting along and excited to work and learn from each other and all this stuff. And then by midway through the documentary, you start to see that break of them being Americans are fucking lazy, like they don't ever work. Like, what is all this holiday crap, and what is this, and we can't run a business like this, and the Americans going, like, what is the problem with China, like, why are they like this, like, this is nuts, this is crazy, and by the end, it completely implodes, like, these two cultures, so, like, it ends up that the billionaire, the Chinese billionaire, ends up pretty much firing all his management of North American people, because he's like, I can't fucking make money with these people, and brings people over to be managers. Right? So the whole idea of the documentary is what it's like to bring two cultures of different beliefs together and try to do a job. Like, how does that work? Right? Because here in Canada, we're short term, but we're driven to work, right? Like you're monitored. Like I know people that go to jobs and, every time they have to go take a shit, they still have to say to their boss, hey, I got to go take a shit.
Yes.
To me, that's ridiculous. Why as growing people are we held to this level of, I got to go to the bathroom. Can I go to the bathroom? Is it okay if I go to the bathroom, or would you prefer me to piss my pants? And having the manager going, well, this is the second time today. Do you really need to go, or do you think you can hold the lunch? Are we in grade fucking 1 here again, all of a sudden? And I hear people with this problem, right? And you're saying long hours there, but they pace themselves through those long hours. So which one's better, which one's worse?
Yeah. Well, then
right?
Just look at Europe itself. Europe, they have it very family orientated there. And you're not allowed to work over a certain amount of hours for the week.
Yeah.
Like, you want overtime? Well, you better have a fucking good reason. You better submit a proposal to the government to get those couple extra hours of overtime, and stuff like this. But even then, you're only allowed up to X number of hours of overtime.
But
that's it.
That's it. And you look at a lot of European countries, they've actually made it illegal for companies to call their employees when they're off.
Yeah.
Like, you get fined if you call an employee at home when they're off, right?
Yeah.
So, it's hard, between the cultures, which one. But anyways, this documentary really showed how difficult it is to bring two completely different cultures with different ideas of what it is to work. Because in China, this factory is the same factory that did the same thing over in China, but all the workers lived at the factory. So they didn't live at home, and they would go home once a month because they got one weekend a month off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So they would go see their family once a month and then come back and live at the factory and do their job. Right? And can you imagine that even being tried here? I know they do that with some of the mining companies,
Actually,
but
I'd be going on strike, I'm just saying.
What they do here is it's building culture is definitely a wonderful adventure, and I've enjoyed it. Whether I did it in Japan, I look to take the best of the Japanese, and I like to blend it with the best of Canada.
Yeah.
And that's what our bank was like in Canada and Japan. I then went to Hong Kong and worked for a French bank. And again, there was a little bit of that, yet I think there was more of the conflict. And then I moved to Singapore after that, which again is a blended culture of 4 million people that they know they've got to change every 7 years or that country will not exist.
Oh,
So you
okay.
can imagine the impetus to change is really strong in Singapore.
Yeah.
right.
And so they're always scanning the world to find best practices and applying it.
Isn't that
Yeah.
amazing?
Now where, and again, 4 million people, they've got some of the greatest technology, applied technology, the applied tax system. They attract people because no one would want to go to Singapore unless it was so attractive to go to. And so they've done a world-beating strategies in human resources, in education, in technology, in a tax system. So it's very robust. I think it's top-rated, top 3 in the world to run a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, where you might be surprised is that the best companies in North America do exactly what you just said the Chinese are doing. So if you go work at Google, you go work at Facebook, they create an environment in the workplace
Yes.
that's got all the games, it's got meditation rooms, it's got gyms, it's got facilities, because they want you to go at 8 or 7 a.m. to go to the gym to eat all your meals. They feed you there. They want you to be bicycling around. They want you to take time, and they want you to go home at 10
Increase
o'clock, at 11 o'clock.
productivity.
Exactly, because,
Yeah.
but those people are motivated, inspired. They're also paid and compensated.
Yes.
We're talking about top performers in North America will bust it. They'll work 80, 90 hours a week because they're also probably making 6 figures.
Yeah.
And they're getting potential equity stock in that.
yeah.
And if the company does well, like Shopify is a company here in Canada.
Yeah.
If you go to Toronto and you see their office, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's now a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yep.
So if you inspire athletes the same way, you think athletes just play the game? No, they've got morning practice, they got afternoon practice. So it's interesting if you are motivated, but you're also structured in a culture that is
Yeah.
about high performance. You're going to be a high performer.
Well, and isn't it funny that 99% of our businesses here in North America can't get behind that idea?
Yeah.
That if you make a work environment that is
Enjoyable.
conducive to productivity,
Yeah.
right, you're going to get productive. Your people are going to be productive. Like this whole idea of okay, you're going to have an hour for lunch, and then why don't you go have a 20-minute power nap?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just going to be sitting at your desk fighting to keep your fucking eyes open and watching, YouTube anyways, doing nothing because you're too tired from eating. Like, why don't you go take a 20-minute nap? Or why don't you go ride a bike? Or why don't you do this, get yourself woken back up, and then go back to work?
See, this is where we're getting into, there are blended economies, and like this is the idea that, and I've encouraged a lot of my friends who are what I called intrapreneurs.
Yeah.
So the word intrapreneur is being entrepreneurial when you're working for a big company. Because big companies want the staff to be actually entrepreneurial inside of the company. And so these people I'd be encouraging, find a way to start working 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Find a way to get Friday off or Monday off so you actually have 3 days to work on some of your pet projects, your passion projects, your projects that might be charitable, that might be social entrepreneurial. And so it can infuse into your work and your hobbies and your learning, and it also makes you a better employee. Because when you're there at the office for the 10 hours for 4 days a week, you would actually be getting things done instead of feeling you're having to rip off the system.
Yeah, and ultimately probably decreasing a shit ton of your stress.
Absolutely.
Well, for sure.
Which is kind of where I'm guessing that this whole idea of the corporate PTSD came into. Like, as you're saying, here you were in Japan, busting it. I'm sorry, I lost the number. There's a lot being said, but for a ton of hours a day, and then your own employees, that was working underneath you and stuff like this, they were working, a few extra hours. Plus, they had the commute and all this good stuff, and you even said things were not good for you at that point.
I was an alcoholic.
Yeah,
I was an alcoholic. I was abusive.
Yeah,
I had a phrase in my life at the time is life's a bitch, then you marry when then you die.
Yeah.
I used to say that 100 times a day.
Yeah.
I had a very dark year, age 26. I lived on the 13th floor, and I thought about committing suicide.
Yeah.
Even though from the outside, everyone thought I was having a super successful life. I was having a high life. Yet inside, I had become such a dark being.
Yeah.
And so that's the interesting thing for me was how, on the one hand, work so hard for making money and being rich and then reaching some of those targets and then finding the emptiness of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so many people say that.
Yeah.
So many people, it's amazing that you're saying this because there's the majority of people, I think, feel that way.
Well, this is why if you start doing research into this and you don't understand why the very super successful people, the Robin Williams, the people who reach the highest levels and they still commit suicide. Well, actually, I've studied suicide, and I'm writing about suicide in this book because I think it's a topic that we particularly have an responsibility to have a conversation about it, to equip people with the empathy and the compassion and then the strategies to heal, to get from that point of hating oneself to liking oneself. That is the key step in my strategy.
Yeah, not even loving yourself, just being able to like yourself.
Loving yourself was way too far because I didn't like myself. When I looked at the mirror, I used to say, I fucking hate you, you fucking chink.
Yeah.
And I used to say that daily. And then when I drank, it became even more powerful.
Yeah.
And I had to learn to like myself. And then fortunately I started to read and I started to learn. And I let go of 25 pounds and I started to be very boring for about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I was working on myself, letting it all go.
Yeah.
And again, the trigger was interesting is that a guy came to my house and I was having a house party because my house became a bit of a party house because I had friends that were part of the national lacrosse team in Tokyo, and they used to party in my house even though I was never there.
Canada's national sport, just saying.
Yes. And one guy came to the party and dropped acid in everyone's drink.
Oh, that's nice.
Really?
Yeah.
On the 13th floor.
Yeah.
That's when I triggered and I threw everyone out of the apartment. And I broke down that night, and I was taking a shower. And I don't know if you've ever seen a Japanese shower, but they're often you sit on a little stool, and you have your squatting, and you got the shower head, and then you got a mirror. And I saw myself, and I was like really bloated and bloodshot eyes, and I smashed the mirror, and that was the day I changed my life.
Yeah.
I started to be curious about how can I like myself.
Right.
And that was first thing I started doing was changing my diet.
Yeah.
I let go of the alcohol. I started little exercise. I started writing and keeping a diary.
Yeah.
And little by little, it changed my life.
Yeah.
And I really went from learning to like myself, and even writing lists of what I liked about myself. And then little by little it became, yes, I could look at the mirror and I could actually say, I love you. And there would be tears sometimes because there was so much pain.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even just my pain. That's what's fascinating, because I've done therapy, and I love researching this, and I'm a passionate about therapy. And I encourage people to go get some therapy, and I think there's so much value in it.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that I was carrying along my parents' pain.
Right.
And my grandparents' pain. And my great-grandparents' pain. And so then I've done quite a bit of research in transgenerational stress.
Yeah.
And how it gets passed on generation to generation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the cycle, right?
Absolutely. And I love it, because I've then been curious about epigenetics. And epigenetics is our cellular memories and how that controls and manipulates and
I got to write that down.
and guides our life. And we can release the pain of our ancestors
Right.
through prayer, through honoring. Because we were talking earlier about some of the racism and that, because I'm half Chinese, so I took a lot of racism playing sports. Like, teams used to headhunt me.
Like
Yeah.
here in
Canada,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one team that actually was cheering, kill the chink, kill the chink, kill the
Really?
chink. It's the last game my mom ever went to watch me play hockey.
What year was that? Like what?
I'm going to say 1976.
Night. So the year I was born.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
I was about 12.
Yeah. So it's amazing because back then, like that was the atmosphere. Could you imagine today somebody yelling something like that in a public arena? They would be the ones that would be crucified. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And which is a good thing. Like
Yeah.
when we talk about changes that are happening, some of them are just astronomical, silly, stupid. But that, like, shows you how far we've come from, you know, I know some places they're still backwards and there's ignorant people, but for the most part, I mean, if a person stood up in an arena today and yelled that type of, you know, racial slur, people around them would jump on them, pound them, throw them outside. They would be all over social media and the news the next day, and their life would be destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But back then, it was just like, oh yeah.
I was actually, I'm grateful, again, because even coming back this time, I hook up with some of my friends from Malton, Mississauga.
Right.
And it's like, we, in many ways, was a test case of multiculturalism in the 1970s and 1980s, when there was different levels of racism and that, the acceptance and the non-acceptance, and how we have grown, and we grew up in that idea of having a meal with different people from different races, and actually eating with your hands, and laughing and having some fun is such a key component. And I think Canada does have that to offer so many places on the planet.
Yeah.
And just continue to work on that, and being curious about other cultures and their dancing and their singing and their expression, their arts is such a cool way. And I think that's, again, part of our infusion of Canada is our music and our vitality and our nature. And those are areas that, again, can be very healing for people. I think one of the most healing species on the planet is a big tree. A tree, when you go and you be in a forest and you get that fully oxygenated air, and it's just, wow, it's like, it makes you breathe in, breathe proud. It's very healing.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because you talk about the different cultures, like with being able to sit around and eat, and the importance, because majority of cultures, like I've worked with a lot of cultures, and they don't consider you a part of. They don't want you in their home visiting until they've broken bread with you.
Correct. I love that phrase.
Until we've had a meal together,
Yes.
we can't solidify this relationship. And it's like, especially a lot of the Middle Eastern cultures, you go there and they put food out, and it is very like disrespectful to not break bread with them and eat with them, right? So
I remember any time I went to go and have any kind of take care of some business while I was overseas. You know, we go to take care of businesses like, you know, like here in Canada, down in the States, you know, in Europe, you walk in, hey, listen, this is who I am, this is what I'm here to do. You want to take care of this? All right, perfect. Moving on. Taking care of things.
Yeah.
Over there, it's like, hey, I'm here. Yes, sit down.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm sitting. Okay, so can we hold? Wait, shway, you know, and then next thing you know it, the little desserts are coming out, the coffee, the tea, and coffee and tea. I'm telling you, any of the energy drinks over here got nothing on these things.
Oh, the coffee's amazing. I love the coffee there.
You know, of course, you go in, you know, thinking, okay, it's a little small, you know, no problem.
I know the first time it comes out, it's like in a little tea party cup. I'm like,
Yeah, you down about 12 of them there. You don't sleep for the next week.
Yeah.
But that was always the thing. You're going to sit there, and if you have business with a Middle Eastern person, you sit down for an hour straight, at least, and then you might start talking business, and it's like, holy crap.
In Asia, it's very alcohol infused.
Yes.
And
Okay,
so
really?
in Japan was, you start off with beer, and then you go to sake, and then you might have some wine, and then some whiskey, and then,
Right.
so like the whole night would just be round after round. And again, often it would be a challenge to the sort of the Westerner also. Is like
Yeah.
they wanted to see how much you can drink, and they would have some big boys out there too who could really handle it and
Yeah.
be the dedicated drinker for the boss. And that is like, seriously, and Taiwan was probably the most intense experience of that for me. It's
Wow.
like we got taken out by a CEO, and he just wanted to make sure he got all the Caucasian bankers wasted,
Yeah.
and he got his loans at the end of the day too.
Nice. Jeez. So back to corporate PTSD.
Yeah, like, because you have this book that you're working on writing, and
Yes.
I'm sorry, do you have a title for
Sure.
it yet? Is the working title?
It's well, actually, the 1996 edition was Awesome Coaching.
Okay.
This one is Awesome Coaching. Get 2020 vision. Get
Okay.
2020 vision, because this idea of having vision and clarity is so
Yes.
important. If you're going to get results, I got a dear friend who always says, "Focus on one thing. Focus on one thing."
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful element of advice. We got so much overwhelm in life, but yet if
Yeah.
you focus on one thing, you get 2020 vision.
Yeah.
And so I like to get 2020 vision with people. So this
Yeah.
book is about getting vision, getting clarity. And one of the key areas is your wellness.
Right.
And so your wellness is about tackling things like overwhelm. I've been working with a number of 20-year-olds on, they're so overwhelmed, yet what we do is we chunk it back down into what would be a resourcefulness strategy for your wellness. Mm-hmm. Get them to manage what they're eating, managing what they're drinking, managing the way they're exercising. That shifts them into a resourcefulness state. And so,
Yeah.
so much about dealing with stress is going and being curious about stress. That's what saved my life.
Yeah.
Was that I became curious about stress. And I went and traveled the world. I invested about $85,000 in 2 years to travel around the world to train with some of the best people in the world about stress. Good stress, bad stress.
Yeah.
Because there is good stress. Good
course.
stress is when you go do a push-up. That's
Yeah.
good
Keeps you
stress.
alive.
Exactly. Our body...
Sometimes just to motivate you enough.
Exactly. And then there's bad stress. Well, again, bad stress for me tends to be insomnia.
Yeah.
That's not a great one.
No.
Yet can you figure out strategies to deal with insomnia? Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Now, I almost died from it. Thank
Yeah.
God that I had two friends from Canada to visit me for 2 weeks in Japan. One ended up staying with me for 3 years. The other stayed for 2 years.
Yeah.
They saved my life, though.
Right
because
on.
they came at the time when I was hitting my rock bottom. And by having people to have a conversation with and to be able to talk, dealing with my insomnia in a more effective manner allowed me to be curious to deal with stress.
Yeah.
And now one of my favorite talks is good stress, bad stress.
Yeah.
And we do want to understand our body, like dopamine. Why do people, like you're talking about ADD and ADHD, those kids don't have attention deficit disorder. You ever watch them play video games?
Yeah.
That dopamine
yeah.
drip is just pounding. They're not lacking any attention. They've
Yeah.
got great attention.
Yeah.
So then oxytocin. Oxytocin is when you give someone a hug.
Yeah.
When you make love.
Yeah.
It floods the body with
Or
these
when
beautiful...
women give birth,
Exactly.
the baby in them. Yeah.
Exactly. So we can tap into this vibrancy that we have in our body, this temple we have. And then we got serotonin, what we get from the sun, what we get from moving, what we get from exercise. And then endorphins. A smile releases endorphins. These are the natural ways to deal with stress.
Yeah.
These are what our body is capable to do. Yet my question is, if you're on all of these artificial drugs, can you even tap into any of this? Or is it substituting it, and therefore you become codependent or dependent on an external
Right.
mechanism? I'm inviting us to get a dose of vitality, a dose of life.
Yeah.
But
so-
that's the interesting thing with the medication. Again, we go back to the person that doesn't want to gain an inch a day, bending over to get to the ground. They're like, "Oh, I can take a pill,
Yes.
and that'll cure it."
Correct.
Perfect.
Correct.
I'll do that.
And so-
I choose that.
So what we're talking about is education, are we not?
Yeah.
Are we not talking
Yeah.
about each individual's journey? And this is the thing about, for me with medication, is one size does not fit all. Yet, if you're in medication, it tends to be one size, one pill solves all. And so I have a big issue personally with that.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it gives away personal empowerment, it gives away personal vitality, because you become dependent on an external. And so,
Yeah.
so different people will have to have their journey of their stress, their journey of their pain. What I'm here is to do is to assist people to look for alternatives. And I had a beautiful experience because my sister got hit with an incredible, after having birth, she went into incredible depression. And she got very, very ill for a number of years. And my mom and dad were worried that she was going to be on drugs for the rest of her life. They wanted to put her on lithium. And for some reason, when they said that, she just said, no,
Lithium?
I'm going to get well. Yeah.
They wanted to put her on
Exactly.
lithium?
Yes.
Was she having psychosis? Was that...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
it's a powerful drug.
Exactly. Well, she had a young 1.5-year-old at the time, and it was, again, it shook my foundation because I thought I was pretty good at this coaching and this therapy and that, and it made me gear up on a whole new level and a whole new respect. And again, what she did is she went inside and she said, "Damn it, no!" And she went into caregiving and she went and became a candy striper at the hospital, and that step of service helped her change her life.
Yeah.
So finding a way that people can be of service to others. That's what I love about mentoring. And I often will, I get asked quite often, will you mentor me? And my first question back to people is, who are you mentoring?
Yeah.
And then I hear wacky things like you probably hear, like, oh, I don't have the time to mentor. Well, you don't have the time to mentor somebody, but you want me to mentor you.
Yeah.
Go mentor 5 people and then come back to me, because then maybe you'll be ready to be mentored.
Yeah.
And so it's a responsibility, the ability to respond. It's an accountability.
Yeah.
And then there's an ownership. You are the owner of your ship.
Well, that's it, and that's the problem. Like I run into all the time, and the first conversation I'll have with clients, whether it's doing mentorship or doing counseling or whatever the case is I'm not a magic pill. Like you are not going to take anything from this that is magically going to make you go to bed tonight and wake up cured tomorrow. The work's on you. I mean, it's up to you how you do things and how you carry what you're learning and, you know, using what we're talking about and all this, but I'm not magical. I don't have a wand.
Thank you for using the word. Can I share again? This metaphor may help, and I hope it does because I like it. Most people you meet who are stuck in a stuck state, they've gone from trauma to drama.
Yes.
Yes.
And so they let this drama be the foci of their life. It's the energy. They're giving all their power away. So trauma to drama. And this is where post-traumatic stress disorder. The trauma becomes their whole vision. It's their Netflix 24/7.
Right.
Yeah.
What I invite them to do, and what I like to do sometimes, is actually I go into that tragic experience. And I go deeper. And there's great meditations even. Like most people think meditations like, no, there's something called dynamic meditation, where you go into like whirling dervishes. And you go into that tragic experience. And you go deeper than you actually went the first time. And then it goes from tragic to magic.
Right.
Because instead of fighting it, you release it.
Yeah, there's a form of counseling that's relatively new, like in North America anyways. I don't know if it comes from somewhere else, but it's that idea that when somebody goes through trauma, part of the problem with the way the human brain has developed with our frontal lobe now, that we've lost that ability of our animalistic when we sense danger, the second we realize it's not danger, we just forget it and move on. But the problem is that danger is still locked. That moment of stress is still locked in us, right? Where animals without the frontal lobe, without that thought, they do the stress dance. So you'll see like when if like a fucking caribou gets attacked by a lion, even when it's finally safe, it runs, collapses, and shakes.
Yes.
It's like when you hit a deer, but that shaking and running is that stress relief and everything coming out. Where we have the ability to go, oh, okay, fuck, it's just my friend just jumped out at me, I'm good.
And so the meditations that changed my life was when I did go to India, and I did go to an ashram, and I did shaking.
Yeah.
And so compared to the trauma I experienced previous, my shaking, I consciously went deeper and more intense into that. It swished it away. Now, does it mean that I'll still maybe have some nightmares of that? Yeah, I might.
Yeah.
But guess what? It was a technique that allowed me to release that energy that got stuck in my cells.
Well,
And help you just kind of move on.
Well, that's what it is, and because they get in that frame of mind, right? So the idea is the person, the counselor, will get them to where they're feeling that stress from the story,
Yeah.
the trauma, and they say, okay, let's live here.
No, I go
stay here.
Yeah, no, I go
Yeah.
go deeper. Go deeper.
Yeah.
Well, no, but like they shake,
Yeah.
they get that out of them, and now, okay, let's continue talking.
Right.
And then when it starts again,
Yeah.
okay, let's live
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
stay here,
Yeah.
let it go.
Yeah.
And
Well-
it's big.
Going back to a couple of things you were saying there, the trauma, the drama, and all this good stuff. I spent some time in the nut house, and I'm allowed to call it that because I was there.
Yes.
But because that's my word.
Correct.
But I spent some time there, and when I went in, I'm like, look, I'm going in for PTSD. I need to get the recovery. I need to figure out what's going on. I was on all these different medications. I hated them. Everything that these medications were doing to me and stuff. I told the doctor right away, I want off these medications. And he's like, well, good luck, and stuff like this. And I'm like, well, we're going to make it happen. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what the big thing was. There's a brick wall in there. We're going to bust down the brick wall. I don't care if you got to hook me up to a car battery and jumper cables. We're going to get in there, So I went in rather proactive, and the people that were already there had been working the program for the last couple weeks and stuff like this. So they're the senior recovery people will say, they're like, oh, so you're one of the new guys in, this is your first week. I'm like, yeah. They're like, okay, welcome to the program. Work the program. And I'm just like, okay, hold on, back up. Tell me what you're meaning by work the program. They're like, don't just sit there, work the program. Do what they say, live it, make these changes and do the stuff, and you will feel better. And I'm like, fantastic, because that's what I'm hoping to do. So I went in with that mindset to change things up. I was going to change. Things are going to happen. I was going to come out of there a whole lot different, a whole lot better. And I was able to do that. There were a lot of life changes going through there. But there were a couple people that were going through the course the same time as me. And some of these people had actually been there for the exact same program a number of times. And they still were not working the program. They were not trying to change. They were trying to just live in that misery, live in the pain, live in what they felt was their thing. And it's like, you're just coming back again. This is just a break for you. This is all this is. You're just locking yourself up to keep away from the rest of the world and wallow in your own self-pity is really what this is. Work the program, make the change. And as you said, try looking at things a little bit differently. Try looking at, life differently. Looking at that traumatic event that happened a little bit differently. Exploring it, with this shaking thing that you guys are talking about. Because, I think my wife shook me a couple times, but that's a whole other story. But, doing that kind of thing, is what is going to help you out. We're working on it. Not just sitting there wallowing in your own self-pity. Make the fucking changes, determined to be happier, more energetic, and all this good stuff. I'm happy being fat, kind of, but that's another story. I like my chalky bars, okay? But, there's the changes that need to be made. Work on that.
See, from what I just heard,
Yeah.
Can I give you feedback?
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why it worked for you
Yeah.
is because you like the word work.
Yeah.
Okay? You as a being like to engage with work, and you're a good worker.
Yeah.
Someone else, that word's like the worst word it possibly could be. So there might be what's called transformational vocabulary.
Yeah.
If they could find a way that it could be play, or it could be dance, or it could be sing,
Yeah.
that might be the trigger for them. And that's how easy it can be sometimes. Because
Just a
words
different way of looking at it.
have power.
Yes.
Yep.
Words, again, when we were little, we had a class at school called spelling.
Yeah.
Because spelling leads us to tell the story in our storytelling way.
Yeah.
Most people are very poor at writing stories. Mm-hmm. The stories they're weaving are tragic, not tragic to magic, it's trauma to drama, or drama to trauma, right? And so they're writing that story in their head all the time.
Yeah.
When you learn to write, and that's one of the beautiful things about writing and putting things down on paper, it allows you to have a record.
Yeah.
And even if you be a student of, when you're angry, what do you say? When you're sad, what do you say? And then you have a record of it. And then you can actually rewrite the story.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can only do it actually when you hit the peak of those emotional. That's the tricky part, is that you can make the change when you get really, really, really angry. And then you can have a nice joke and you can make yourself laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You rewire the brain. You rewire the neurons. And so that's where that one size fits all just doesn't work. It really
No.
has to be tailored to the individual to find what floats their boat.
Yeah. Well, that's what I always say, like what you're saying there. Like I always tell people, if you don't work the program, you can go to counseling every day of your life for 4 hours a day. And if you don't buy in, it's not going to do anything for you.
No.
So I always laugh, like, the courts, they'll give the sentence to people to have anger management, right? Well, if that person doesn't buy in to anger management and work the tools and skills they learn, it's not doing shit.
Correct.
Like, why are we forcing this? Like,
You're just allowing someone to get paid.
well, that's it, right? That's it.
So
Somebody
make work
somebody
projects.
came up with a project and gave it to the courts at some point and said, listen, if you send us all your criminals that have violent whatever, we'll put them through this program.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
So it's financial. Again,
Yeah.
a lot of our society is financially driven. Again, I think Canada's a little bit better off than our friends down south, where, yet again, it can be very scary if you think about the jail system in the States,
Yeah.
whereas they're private jails now. They're for profit. So what
Yeah.
do they got to do? They got to get the funnel to get as many people in there. And they just
Absolutely.
lost one of the biggest ways to have that funnel is that marijuana is being legalized around the world now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, so now they got to figure out a new way to be able to make that happen.
And they will.
Yeah.
It's big business.
Absolutely.
They'll figure out a way to
Yeah.
keep their money flowing in. But so back to the PTSD, with the corporate PTSD, how did we make the jump? Okay, because like when we heard at first corporate PTSD, we're kind of like, okay, well, we know PTSD. What is this corporate PTSD? When was the jump made to say your work stress, your work anxiety, work depression, all this, but now we're going to the level of, if you surpass this, it's now PTSD. If you are having panic attacks and not like, when did this corporate PTSD kind of become coined as a new term?
I believe it's been the last 7 years because, like, when people in the corporate, they get pissed off. Like, I used to be a bond trader. And so, as a bond trader, fuck this, fuck that, fuck this, fuck this, fuck that. It was all part of this thing in the office place. It was like, it was just so much anger and so much frustration. And, like, we were able to throw things and just break computers. And the people who were the top performers, they could do whatever they want. Well, guess what? Some of those people are now pretty influential.
Yeah.
They're even working for pharmaceuticals.
Right.
So if we can expand the banner of PTSD now to this whole idea that, whoa, there's a big market, because PTSD is only for the military guys who went over to the Middle East. And no, they're saying in corporates that if you suffered from abuse or you suffered from anger or well, we can diagnose that and start prescribing all these drugs for that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and these people who snap off like that, like, they're a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we've got a whole new target market. We can expand it. We can grow it.
Yeah.
And so that's economics.
Right.
That is, when you develop a drug or a treatment, who else can we target for this?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I believe it's been the last 5 to 7 years. Corporate PTSD is now, I think you're going to start reading in a lot more books. And they're using the same type of scenario, that a trigger of bullying, a trigger of insomnia, of a trigger of stress is going to now be more labeled.
Right.
We talk about labels.
Yeah.
It can be your friend and it can be your foe.
For sure.
Yep.
Now, if you're labeled something that you like and you feel good and your self-esteem goes up, it's probably good labeling.
Right.
Well, I'm a people person. I can get along with people.
Yeah.
Well, I'm an introvert and I'm very good with numbers. It can be positive to one's identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then other way, it can be detrimental to their...
Well, for sure. And then it's going to start like the whole ADHD thing with kids, where, before it was like a small percentage were being diagnosed with that and the rest were just hyperactive kids, or, oh, of course, like they're young. Nowadays, if your kid fucking stands up from his desk because he's got a leg cramp, he's got, ADHD.
Yeah.
Right? And that's my fear of this whole new corporate PTSD is somebody could just be stressed out at work and need a week off to take a deep breath, but then the experts are going to say, no, that's corporate PTSD. So now you need 3 months off, medication, and now maybe we need to start in Canada. I don't know about other places, but ODSP. Are you fit to go back to work ever again?
Exactly.
Right? And if you got somebody has a little bit of depression, and like we've all felt that. We've all felt those days where we just can't get out of fucking bed, but now that doctor puts a label on it, that person starts living that label, right? And that
Yes.
happens to so many people where they're told, oh, you got depression. Oh, fuck, I'm depressed.
Exactly.
Now you
Yeah.
feel depressed.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to I just had a bad day or a bad week or a bad month, right?
Yeah.
So, now we've got this new label, corporate PTSD. Where does that lead? Does that lead to 90% of the workforce? Because I'm pretty sure 90% of the workforce out there, those zombie car drivers that I'm talking about in the morning, are going to have fucking corporate PTSD now.
Well, and like for me, like we all know one of my favorite words is triggered.
Yes.
Because of the misuse of that word, right? Oh my God, my coffee was cold. I'm so triggered. Shut the fuck up. You are not triggered.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's downplaying real things. Like, okay, yes, you found your coffee was cold, and you're like, oh, well, that sucks. You went to the microwave, you fucking warmed it up, your problem was solved, right? Whereas with fucking, PTSD, and people that have PTSD, they get fucking triggered. You might want to watch the fuck out. There's going to be a bad thing. People are going to be, might not be a bad thing for you, might be a bad thing for the person that's living with the PTSD, and it's not one of these things where you can just go to the microwave and fucking warm up that coffee and, oh, good, everything's better now, and, like with you bringing that up, like this got me thinking, as you said, with the labels, the money, the financial part of it there, is it not that now going to downplay? So, you see these guys coming back, first responders, military folk and all this good stuff, coming back with full-blown diagnosed PTSD, and it's bad, and then it's like, oh, well, I have this. Okay, hold on. Is this the same shit? Or you just really stressed the fuck out? Is that it? Well,
but that's the line to find, right?
Yeah.
Like, who's going to find that line to say, well, you're just stressed out?
Well, like if it's the pharmaceuticals and they've got the checklists,
Yeah.
it will usually be, well, let's have this prescription for you.
Yeah.
So that is part of the gray area, and that's part of the challenge.
That's the problem
Yeah.
because they start putting in shit.
Over-prescribing.
Well,
Yeah.
they start putting in shit to get people prescribed. It's like,
Yes.
oh, you've gone from 1 to 2 pisses a day. That's corporate PTSD. You need to go on a pill.
Yeah.
And that is
Right.
the challenge that, from a perspective, if you're a business person, you want that because that's
Yeah.
going to increase your target market.
Yeah.
If you're an individual, you have to take more individual responsibility.
Yeah.
You really need to be curious about this. You got to find out what works for you if you choose to, because you're right.
Yeah.
Most people probably will just want to be
Yeah.
a recipient and just be a
Yeah.
The
A
easy
vegetable.
the easy way.
And,
Right? It's the easy way. And if it does relieve my stress, that's great too, because then I don't have to worry about it and deal with it. Like if
Yeah.
it takes my stress away magically, then I don't have to go talk to a counselor. I don't have to start exercising. I don't have to eat properly. I can still stop off at McDonald's on my way home every day and still sit on the couch and watch Netflix hours on end. I can.
And I'm being paid. See, that's what my
know.
challenge is if you're in business and you're looking for profitability for your business and you have staff that are all now finding a new way to avoid work.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the
Yeah.
dangerous part, right? Because
But then
as
you
soon
can't
as
do
get
anything with it. That's fucking discrimination, and then they got a
That's
lawsuit.
right.
Like-
That's right. Because as soon as you get labeled with something like PTSD,
Yeah.
like this isn't against people that have PTSD at all. Like I mean, it's like
Yeah.
everything else. There's people
Yeah.
with actual PTSD, and yeah, there's some shit. But when you start fucking just throwing that label out on everybody, PTSD,
Yeah.
nobody's got anywhere to go.
How many people have fucking OCD right now? Oh my fuck.
Well, I got.
Oh my god, my OCD is acting up.
Exactly.
Fuck you. You do not have OCD.
Well,
you
but
just
that's
like
what I
things
mean.
being in
But the
place.
problem
That's it.
but the problem is now these people can get into the ODSP realm.
Yeah.
And get financial, and they're untouchable. And now you got people using the system, right? Because, like, how hard is it to go to your doctor at this point and point to the direction that you have MDD, major depressive disorder, or GAD?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And, you tell them the 3 or 4 symptoms you need to, and then they're like, oh, well, you have this. Okay. Okay, well, then I can't go to work.
Right. Prescribe
I can't do
3
this.
days off, a week off.
Yeah.
Again, so it's happening.
Yeah.
And it is. We tend to see things again from the financial markets too. It
Yeah.
moves in waves.
Yeah.
Right? It tends to overcompensate both sides.
Yeah.
So we will see, I believe, since you've asked,
Yeah.
the PTSD corporate will probably go a little bit too far on the
Yeah.
side of
Pendulum
overdiagnosing.
swing.
So
Yeah.
Now,
But that-
to be clear, like I completely understand, the potential or possibility to get corporate PTSD, as we're labeling it, because my last job that I had, holy fuck, was I miserable, and then, I know that like the boss would come to me, and be like, hey, listen, can you go to this place somewhere in the world? Yeah, I could probably do that. When do you need me to go? How's about 2 days from now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. How long am I going to be there for? How's about, I don't know, a month, maybe 2 at the most? Well, shit, that's a little short notice. That's going to be for a long time. Yeah, okay. And then a month into it, they're like, listen, we kind of need you to stay for a full 6 months now. Well, fuck it. I'm here now, and then you have all that stress building up, trying to make sure that the product your company is trying to sell or promote and stuff like this, because you're the face of the company at this point in time. So you got to make sure that the customer is happy with you and the company and the product, when it's potentially a piece of shit. Okay. Have that kind of situation, and you're there and you're trying to put the smiles on. I'll tell you right now, my last couple months when I was busy traveling and stuff like this, there was no smile. People would ask me, hey, what about this? It fucking sucks. I was begging to get fired. I never did. But so I can definitely see the stress. Like, as I said before, I'd gone to the Nut House. I went through the program, and I was pretty fucking good to go for a good number of years. And then about a year before I actually left my job, I actually had a complete breakdown. Called up my wife and said, you need to get me a doctor that can do Skype right now. I need that. I got to talk to somebody, because I was right back to where I was. So I can completely understand the possibility of getting a corporate PTSD. In my opinion, I don't think it's labeled properly, right?
No.
Because I like having the proper labels at the right place, But the premise behind it, the stress, and yes, it can be traumatic. Having to do different things in the corporate world, having to deal with asshole bosses, who will never be not an asshole, stuff like that. There's so many things that are going to develop so much stress, create traumatic situations, and away you're going to go.
But that's the thing, and I love how he says this, because the other half of this, there's the pendulum swing of the people saying that, I have post-traumatic stress disorder in my job. Hopefully, if that pendulum swings way out there, it's going to, like we talked about earlier, how our companies have made work so stressful and so shitty. Maybe now they have to start looking at, fuck, we better fix shit. Otherwise, 3/4 of our workforce is going to be off with a stress disorder.
Yes.
And that might force them to start looking at companies like Google. And how are they doing it? How are they making their employees come to work? How are they, now suddenly it's like, okay, we're going to fucking figure this out. We're going to make things better in the workforce.
There could be conversations.
Yeah.
There could be open town hall meetings. There could be wellness programs. There could be curiosity. There could be teaching. There could be lessons on this as part of the strategy.
Yeah.
The idea that it's interesting, you've used the word trigger a couple of times, and your trigger is very different than my trigger. And it's fascinating because yours is pretty much people who are oversensitive labeling triggers. And for me, I use trigger as what emotion does it trigger in me?
Yes.
So I actually like being triggered, and then I'll take a deep dive into what is being triggered right now. Is it anger? Is it sadness?
Yes.
Is it loneliness? And I'll have that conversation with myself, because the external does trigger things, and so I've used it very different from yours. Yet that's what comes from conversation.
Yes.
Now.
And you know what? I can totally get behind that. I can definitely get behind that. Well, it triggered this emotion in me that, blah, blah, blah. But you see, I'm going to just call they're fanatics, right? Well, I'm going to use that word because I've got a bunch of other words I'd love to call them, but we'll work with that one. But oh my God, I was so triggered today. This happened. And then I was triggered because this. And Shut the fuck up, Junior. Okay? You want me to show you triggered? Come with me. We're going to go down to the VA office. We're going to show you some people that are triggered. Right. But I understand what you're saying there.
We got corporate PTSD on one area. Then we also got, what's fascinating is this whole idea of loneliness.
Yeah.
And so the loneliness reports, again, loneliness doesn't necessarily have the energetic charge that PTSD does, yet CEO loneliness surveys are suggesting that CEOs are incredibly stressed out now, and severely challenged by loneliness
Of course.
Yeah.
because they don't have, who can they talk to? They can't talk to their board of directors. They can't talk to their subordinates.
No.
They're often estranged from their significant other.
Yeah.
And so they are incredibly lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know I've worked with a number of people in Japan and in Singapore where they're the top dog and they really only have their coach or their advisor to be able to share how lonely they are.
And then even then they have to be careful.
Absolutely.
Like especially here, you got a CEO that opens up about feeling lonely. Suddenly people are like, should he be running the company?
Exactly.
Right? Or should she be running the company?
Right.
Whichever way you want to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a scary thing. I mean, being the top dog is the loneliest place in the world.
Well, that's what's
Yeah.
happening in a lot of the statistics. Harvard Business Review did a research on that in the past year, and so there's a whole movement now to encourage, and actually it's part of my chapter in my book on
Yeah.
loneliness and PTSD, and it really is about what can they do to
Yeah.
tap into creativity.
Right.
What can they do to really be in areas of service? What can they do to allow old hobbies to even come in? Like that's what's great about things like music and dance and singing and drawing and painting. These are all ways, and actually the Koreans have done a great job at that in the highest levels for many corporates,
Yeah.
is that they're inviting people to come in and running workshops for their top management to
Yeah.
start drawing.
Yeah.
Like, when did it become? I just did a CPR course, and the guy who was running the CPR course was talking about trauma a lot
Right.
because he was really bringing down the bar on what are the things that could be traumatic. Like he even mentioned that my hockey experience when I was like 12 or 13, it was trauma.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really look at it that way until sort of reflected.
Yeah.
Under the definitions these days, I was probably traumatized.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Oh.
and then it leads to a fear. Then it leads to a whole gamut of
Yeah.
energy that brings you out of resourcefulness into
Yeah.
unresourcefulness. And
Right.
those are words that I like to play with encourage people to, does this make you feel more resourceful or less resourceful?
Yeah.
Helping people get better at making decisions, of actually being able to personally choose is it's one of the first steps.
Yeah.
So like that's what I'd almost chunk it down when people are saying I don't even want to exercise. Well, it's your choice.
Yeah.
I'm not saying go to the gym for an hour. I'm saying how about do 10 squats?
Yeah.
Or what would be a good number for you?
Yeah.
So they can start having little wins. It's
Right.
those little wins that are so important to help people start healing.
It's
Yeah.
like building blocks, right?
It truly is.
I always tell, people, you look at a staircase, if it's really, really like 1,000 stairs ahead of you and you're thinking about getting to the top, you're probably not even going to start it. But if you just look at that first fucking step and just take it and then rest and then take one more, eventually you're going to get there, but you're not going to stress yourself out. You're not going to get exhausted thinking about it, that kind of thing.
Well, I've done these things called the fire walks. Like, you see the coals and you go do a
Oh,
fire
yeah,
walk.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I've done a number of those. And
Have you tried the Lego walk? I've heard they've done those a few times too. Where instead of the lava, they actually put like a row of Legos, and you go and you
Oh, okay.
quickly walk across them. You know what? I think I'd much rather do the lava. Just saying.
Yeah.
And so those walks, and there's also a
Yeah.
glass walk. Yet it's funny because it is the psychology of it. Because once you've done the first step, you're
Yeah.
finished.
Right.
And so it's that first step where you have fear and you have doubt and you have anxiety. And it's that first step, and then you're over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, for
that's
sure.
so often getting started with wellness, getting started with your path of health, your dealing or engaging or allowing it to serve you. Because what's beautiful about your experience with PTSD, and I'm not sure if you're quite there yet I have a feeling it's a big part of your future, is that you're going to be helping so many people
Yeah.
deal with it
Yeah.
and then embrace it and then honor it.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about racism earlier. I was in India doing a talk, and India is famous for tolerating. It's a land of tolerating.
Right.
And I asked the audience, what would India be like if we moved from you tolerating to you accepting?
Yeah.
Right.
And then I asked, how about if we honored? So go from tolerating to accepting to honoring. And so that idea of honoring PTSD, I haven't heard too many people say it, yet it could be your best friend given the message and who you're going to help in the future if you see it that way.
Right.
And a lot of it's the way you've written it.
I'll give you another. I'll give you another story. What was it? once again, stories from the Nut House with Greg. But I was there, and they put me in this one group full of some people that I would not normally ever hang out with.
Right.
Okay. And I found that this group was a little more boo-hooey than what I needed to be around at that point in time. And so the one person was like, look, you know, like I normally run a suicide prevention line, or I'm one of the operators and stuff like this, you know, and, you know, here it is. I've had this PTSD from this abuse that happened to me when I was a child, you know, and stuff like this. And I made mention, well, why don't you use that as part of your credential? You know, and like I'm trying to be positive about it and be like, look, you know, yes, it fucking sucks that this situation happened to you, but why don't you use it as like, listen, I can understand what you're going through, because you know why? I was there too. As opposed to one of these fucking operators, well, chapter 2 of part 4 says that we should be telling you this. You know, who the fuck cares, right? I want someone who's going to be able to be real and be able to talk to me about what I want to understand. So this is what I was trying to explain to this person. This person freaked the fuck out. Oh, so I should be happy that this happened to me, that this person did this person. I'm like, okay, no. That's not what I'm fucking saying. Don't be happy that it fucking happened, but learn it. Oh, so just maybe everybody have a good day. I got to get the fuck out of here before I choke slam you. You know, like, yeah, fun shit.
Well, again,
you know, and like as you're saying with the honoring it, right? That's kind of what I was kind of thinking that at the time. Use that. Take it. Embrace it. It fucking sucks. It happened. You can't fucking change it. So do something positive with it.
You can change the meaning of it, though.
Yes.
I think that's where, again, with sexual abuse, the one who's probably had the biggest impact that I've observed is Oprah.
Yeah.
Oprah coming out and talking about it. She actually found compassion and empathy for the relative who abused her. Because often the abuser has been abused. And so as opposed to being that victim, if we can get to that point where it was an experience, we survived it.
Yeah.
It's made us stronger.
Yeah.
It's by no means saying it was right. It's saying it's part of my journey, and it's something that can pull me down, or it can something that can rise me. So we look for people who are the survivors, the ones who are finding the strategy that worked for them.
Yes.
And I'm not saying your strategy is going to work for everyone, because I was just saying, but it's beautiful, is that your big one is work. If I'm ever going to do something with you, I'm going to say, how about doing some work? And you're going to chew it because you chew through work.
Yeah.
Where someone else, I might have to play with the word play, or I might have to play with the word dance. And so finding the vocabulary that they're speaking with, and then there's a victim vocabulary and there's a victor vocabulary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so finding that, and that's the curiosity component that I sort of loved in life.
Yeah.
And it is about just asking one or two questions, because then you get to hear them and telling their story.
Yeah.
And that really gives an illumination into their world.
Yeah. And now that, from what I understand, or from what you've been telling us before, like with your book, like, yes, you have the corporate PTSD in there. You have a bunch of other aspects around it. But within your book, you're talking about a lot of different ways to help manage it, help recover it, if I'm saying the right words. You know, is that correct? Like, can if you were to basically summarize what your book's about to be, how would you do it?
Well, again, there's two sections to it.
Yeah.
So the first section is about this idea of engaging depression.
Yeah.
And then it is about mental health for men.
Yeah.
And then grief process.
Right.
And then the ideas of loneliness and overwhelm and PTSD. So
Right.
I really took the chapters that interested me when I first got back to Canada and just noticed that it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So it was quite a shock. It was quite eye-opening. So I did a bit of a dive, and I wanted to share some strategies that help people.
Yeah.
The second part of the book is actually how to bring this type of dialogue we're having, how to bring coaching into the workplace, to impact the workplace by enthusiastic listening, by asking better questions. So it's the strategies that anyone, if they use one strategy, it can change their life.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's right. Like one word can change someone's life.
For sure.
Yeah.
Eliminating a word that always pulls you down and putting a word that makes you feel great or grateful or happy.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it's not about being happy all the time, because actually being happy all the time, that's when you'll be in the nut house. Because we have
for a whole other thing.
We have emotions that actually, it's energy and motion, and that's what we're looking to tap into.
Yeah.
I love my sadness. Because I go watch a movie and the tears start leaking. I actually find it quite humorous watching myself, a grown man, watching a cartoon and crying. I actually find that quite humorous about myself.
Hey, I'm not going to lie. That Lion King movie really sucked when Mufasa died. Okay, I'm not ashamed to say so.
So again, yeah, that's what's human about us, and that's where the healing happens. Again, I'm one of these guys that whenever I watch a movie that there's a team component,
Right.
I miss being part of a team.
Right.
Like I loved being an athlete and being part of a team and leaving it all in the field and being at certain times in my life, I don't really have that team around. When I came back to Canada, they sold a couple of businesses, and I'm sort of here by myself. And it's like, creating communities, being part of communities, contributing communities. It's been a real cathartic and also enjoyable experience.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So where can somebody find your books?
Well, again, there's we can put a link on there because I had a couple of books. One was on the coaching, and the one was Entrepreneur X Factor and 6 Dimensions of Top Achievers. This one we're working on right now. We're on the second edit. It's intended to be released in the next couple of months.
Right.
So we'll be exploring that. We may do a book launch, and hopefully you guys will. If I'll coordinate with you guys and come down and maybe do a podcast and do something, because I've really enjoyed chatting with you. And the perspective, I think, I have a feeling that even if it's just, again, one word or one story or one approach to know you can change your life.
Well, we'll definitely get those links off you there. We'll put them down in the bottom there underneath everything else. And we got there the social media links, and we'll make sure, you can get Dave Rogers' stuff and find out where to find them and all this good stuff there. As I said before earlier, I heard you in another podcast, and you're one of the deepest motherfuckers I've ever met before. If we had like a big bowl of weed or something like that here, I could just imagine dude, for like the next fucking few hours.
Absolutely.
But yeah, absolutely fantastic having you here. Definitely learning a lot. Very deep shit.
It was kind of weird because the podcast you're on was like a religious one.
Spiritual. Difference between spiritual and religious. Religious has a certain doctrine that you're supposed to follow, usually based on a person.
Yeah.
Spiritual is actually the root of spirit is esprit.
Yes.
Esprit comes from breath.
Yeah.
Right.
And so my work is all about breathing, because often our breathing, when we get stressed out, we don't breathe.
No.
When you get anxiety or stage fright, you don't breathe.
Yeah.
So when you start to deep breathe, you tap into your life force.
Yeah.
So that's nothing religious. That's about you as a living being being more aware of your living force.
Okay.
And finding ways to use that. And what part of my challenge is that if it gets too toxic with all of the things you put in your system, you get blockages.
Yeah.
Those blockages create the upsets.
For sure.
So clear it. Breathing.
Yeah.
Good water.
And honestly,
sunlight. Positive words.
Just the breathing alone, I think a lot of people need to do that. Suck back, fucking reload, and just take a fucking breath.
I find I get out. I find I get out of breath when I breathe too much.
Yeah.
Tires me out.
Yes. It is major work.
Yeah. But Dave, just want to thank you again for coming out here.
Thank you.
Talking with us. This has been mind blowing. This is probably the quietest I've been during a podcast for a while, because I'm just sitting here in awe, going, "Holy fuck, what?"
Yeah.
But it's been fantastic. Great having you out here. So, folks, make sure you check out the links down below. Check out, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, follow us on our other platforms. Have yourself a good week. Fucking breathe, and check out Dave later. All right? We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Later.
Why are you so offended?